Have you ever felt that cold dread that creeps in when an invitation to a high school reunion shows up? That pressure to present a perfect, successful version of yourself, especially to the very people who made you feel small? What if I told you that sometimes the most desperate measure you take to protect yourself could accidentally lead you to the greatest reward of your life? It's a controversial thought, but I believe destiny works in mysterious ways, and this story is proof. It's about how a woman, so desperate to impress her old bullies, hired a fake date for her high school reunion. But what she didn't know was that he was a secretly rich CEO with a shocking test. This is a story about two people from completely different worlds. On one side, we have the kind-hearted Luna Young, a woman haunted by memories of being humiliated, just trying to survive one night. On the other, we have Thomas Watson, a powerful, lonely secret CEO, a man so secretly rich he could buy anything, except the one thing he truly wanted: a genuine human connection. He was tired of the lies. She was about to create one. Their collision was inevitable, a plot twist orchestrated by fate itself. She thought she was in control, that she was just renting a handsome face for a few hours to get a little revenge on her past. But the entire night was a lie far bigger than her own. The man she hired wasn't just a pretty face, he was a billionaire on a secret mission. The whole reunion, every conversation, every accident, was a carefully designed, shocking test of her character. She was walking into a trap, but it was a trap designed to see if she was worthy of a real love story. This isn't just a story about a reunion. It's a story about overcoming, about the underdog finally getting her day, and about the kind of surprise ending that feels like it's straight out of a movie. It's an emotional roller coaster that will have you questioning everything you think you know about first impressions and second chances. It's a heart-aching reminder that the best things in life happen when you least expect them. We are about to dive deep into a night of secrets, lies, and revelations that will leave you breathless. You're going to see kindness tested, bullies getting exactly what they deserve, and a love story that blossoms in the most unexpected way imaginable. The central conflict is simple: she hired him to fool her old school, but he was the one with the ultimate secret, and her entire future hung in the balance of his shocking test. Before we begin this incredible journey, I want to feel how far our story is traveling tonight. Please do me a huge favor and comment below with the city or country you're watching from, so we know how far our community reaches. And if you believe in the power of a good story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next, and share this video with someone who you think will be touched by this incredible tale. Let's get into it. A decade is a funny thing, ain't it? It feels like a lifetime and a blink of an eye, all at once. For some, it's a canvas for growth, success, and glowing up. But for others, it's just a longer runway for old anxieties to pick up speed. The invitation to the high school reunion felt less like a party and more like a summons, a judgment day she wasn't prepared for. The thought of facing them again, the ones who made her feel small, twisted her stomach into knots. She knew she needed some kind of armor. This wasn't just about showing up, it was about showing shed one. The burning need for a little revenge, even a quiet one, was a fire she couldn't put out. The narrative of her life needed a plot twist, a chapter where she wasn't the lonely girl in the corner. She decided that if she couldn't rewrite the past, she'd at least control the present. That's when the idea sparked, a desperate, crazy idea. She would hire the perfect boyfriend, a fake date for one night only. Little did she know, miles away in a steel and glass tower, a man was wrestling with his own kind of isolation. He was the quintessential secret CEO, a man whose name opened doors, but whose heart remained locked away. He was tired of the gold diggers, the sycophants, the endless parade of women who saw his net worth before they saw him. He craved something real, something genuine, and his closest advisor had suggested a rather unconventional solution to find it: a sort of character evaluation. And so, two worlds, spinning on entirely different axes, were set on a collision course by destiny. On one side, a woman's deep-seated need to overcome her past. On the other, a man's search for a future he could believe in. The plan was audacious, a gamble for both of them in ways they couldn't possibly imagine. The entire evening was meticulously designed to be a shocking test, a stage for authenticity to either shine or shatter under the pressure of old wounds and new expectations. The whole setup was almost poetic, a beautifully tragic convergence of needs. She downloaded an app, swiped through profiles, and found him. He seemed perfect, charming, handsome, and most importantly, available. He was her ticket to an evening of peace, a shield against the inevitable jabs and condescending looks. She thought she was the one pulling the strings, orchestrating her small victory. It's funny how we think we're in control, isn't it? The underdog was about to step into the ring. As she confirmed the booking, a sense of relief washed over her, quickly followed by a pang of guilt. It felt deceitful, a story built on a lie. But the fear of being humiliated again was stronger. What she failed to realize was that she wasn't just hiring an accessory for the evening. She was unwittingly signing up for the lead role in a very elaborate play, a real-life love story waiting in the wings, and she had no idea what the surprise ending would be. The night of the high school reunion would change everything. Let's pull back the curtain and meet our leading lady, Luna Young. You wouldn't guess the storm brewing inside her by looking at her. To the world, she was a kind-hearted librarian, a gentle soul who found solace in the quiet rustle of turning pages and the scent of old books. Her life was a carefully curated sanctuary of peace, a fortress built to keep the harshness of the Kangwa world at bay. It was a simple life, yes, but it was hers, and she protected it fiercely. But the upcoming high school reunion was a cannonball aimed right at her peaceful walls. Just the thought of it made her feel that old, familiar dread, a cold ghost sliding its fingers down her spine. It wasn't the seeing of old acquaintances that bothered her, it was the seeing of them. The popular clique, the self-appointed royalty of the hallways, whose laughter had once been the soundtrack to her deepest insecurities. She was once again feeling like the ultimate underdog. You see, memories have a way of sticking to you, like burrs on a sweater. For Luna Young, high school wasn't a highlight reel of proms and football games. It was a gauntlet of survival. She was haunted by the echoes of their mockery, the snide remarks about her second-hand clothes, the way they'd look down on her because her family didn't live on the right side of town. Being humiliated wasn't just an event, it was a state of being. They had forced upon her. Her humble background became their favorite weapon. They couldn't stand that she was smart, that she had dreams bigger than their small-town kingdom. So they aimed for the one thing she couldn't change where she came from. It was a cruel, relentless campaign that left scars no one could see. And now, 10 years later, she feared walking back into that same emotional battlefield, completely unarmed and alone. This fear was the catalyst for her desperate plan. This deep-seated fear created a powerful internal conflict. Part of her screamed for overcoming, for showing them all that she was more than their cruel caricatures. She wanted to walk in there, with her head held high, a testament to her own strength and destiny. But the other part, the younger, wounded part of her, just wanted to hide. This internal war was exhausting, an emotional tug-of-war that left her feeling drained before the night had even begun. So caught between the desire for a quiet form of revenge and the terror of repeating the past, she leaned into her audacious plan. The fake date was no longer just a shield, it was a statement. It was her one shot at a plot twist in a story she felt was already written. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and a strange new flicker of hope. Little did she know, her partner in this charade was preparing for a performance of his own. Now let's shift our focus to a world of skyscrapers and high-stakes decisions. Here we meet Thomas Watson, the very definition of a man who has it all. As the secret CEO of a sprawling tech empire, his days were a wind of meetings, strategies, and numbers with too many zeros to count. He commanded boardrooms with an easy confidence and a sharp intellect that left competitors scrambling. From the outside, his life was a fortress of success. But man, castles can be lonely places. Behind the power suits and the confident facade was a profound sense of isolation. Thomas Watson was tired. Tired of the transactional relationships, of the women whose eyes glazed over with dollar signs the moment he mentioned his work. He felt like a walking bank account, a prize to be won, not a person to be known. This secretly rich life had become a gilded cage, and he was desperate for a key. His most trusted advisor, a sharp and perceptive woman who had been with him for years, saw his quiet desperation. One afternoon, she proposed something utterly out of the box. "You want to find someone genuine?" Shed said. "Then you have to change the game. Stop leading with your wallet. Let's create a shocking test, an audition for character, not for a role as a CEO's wife." The idea was radical, a little crazy, and utterly brilliant. It was the plot twist his personal life desperately needed. The chosen tool for this clandestine operation? A popular fake date app. It was the perfect cover. On this platform, he wouldn't be Thomas Watson, the billionaire magnate. He could be only a teacher, a musician, an artist. It allowed him to strip away the intimidating layers of his wealth and present himself as just a man. It was a way to level the playing field, to see who a woman truly was when she thought her date had nothing material to offer. And the perfect stage for this social experiment, a high school reunion. His advisor had found Luna's request and flagged it as the ideal scenario. It was a high-pressure environment, a place where insecurities ran rampant and people were desperate to impress. It was a petri dish for observing character under stress. How would this woman, Luna Young, treat her seemingly average date when surrounded by the ghosts of her past and the temptation to show off? So the plan was set. Thomas, intrigued and a little nervous, agreed to the mission. He was tired of his predictable love story plotlines, which always ended in disappointment. This felt different. It felt real, a chance to find something authentic. In a world that felt increasingly fake, he was about to step into a role that had nothing to do with his fortune, ready to see if destiny had something more in store for him than just another lonely night in his penthouse. The moment Luna Young hired him, a wave of nervous energy coursed through her. He called her to confirm the details, his voice warm and steady, instantly putting her a little more at ease. He introduced himself as Tom, a substitute teacher, a profession she found endearing and respectable. He had a disarming charm that came through even over the phone, a stark contrast to the arrogant jock she remembered from her high school days. This felt different. This felt safe. Thomas Watson, for his part, slipped into his role with the ease of a seasoned actor. He wasn't just pretending, he was channeling a part of himself that he rarely got to show, the simpler man who enjoyed good conversation over stock market reports. When they met for a quick coffee before the high school reunion, he was everything his profile promised: witty, attentive, and genuinely interested in her. He was playing his part for the shocking test, but he was surprised by how natural it felt. The chemistry between them was, well, it was undeniable. It wasn't just polite conversation, it was a real connection. They talked about books, travel, and the silly, small joys of life. Luna found herself laughing, a real, unforced laugh that reached her eyes. For a few moments, she completely forgot he was a fake date. She forgot about the reunion and the bullies. She was just a woman enjoying the company of a fascinating man, and it felt dangerously good. This was a heart-aching development she hadn't anticipated. But with every laugh, a little voice of guilt pricked at her conscience. Here was this wonderful, kind man, and their entire meeting was based on a lie. Her lie: She was using him as a social prop, a buffer for her own insecurities. The irony was thick enough to choke on in her quest to present a fake, successful version of herself. She was being deceitful to one of the most genuine-seeming people she had met in years. It was an emotional conflict that was tearing her up. Inside, this wasn't just about impressing old rivals anymore. Her feelings were getting tangled up in this charade. What had started as a simple plan for overcoming her past was quickly morphing into something far more complicated. She was starting to care what he thought of her, and that was a plot twist she was not ready for. The potential for a real love story was right in front of her, but it was built on a foundation of lies, and that felt like a tragedy in the making. As they finished their coffee and prepared to head to the lion's den, Luna took a shaky breath. The night ahead was no longer just about survival, it was about juggling a lie that was growing heavier by the minute. She looked at Tom, with his easy smile and kind eyes, and felt a pang of regret. She had wanted a shield, but she hadn't expected the shield to have a soul. The destiny of the evening was about to unfold, and she was more terrified than ever. They walked into the high school reunion, and it was like stepping into a time machine. The same faces, now with a few more lines and a lot more to prove. The air was thick with forced smiles and competitive small talk. And then Luna saw her. The queen bee, the main architect of her high school misery. She was holding court in the center of the room, dripping in designer labels and an air of smug satisfaction. Some things, it seemed, never change. The mean girl's eyes scanned the room and locked onto Luna, a predatory gleam in her gaze. She sauntered over, her husband trailing behind her like a well-trained puppy. Luna Young. "I almost didn't recognize you," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Her eyes flickered dismissively over to Thomas. "And who is this?" "You didn't bring a date from the library, did you?" The jab was meant to sting, to remind everyone of Luna's status as the perpetual underdog. Thomas Watson, playing the role of the unassuming teacher, simply smiled politely, extending a hand. "Tom, nice to meet you." The mean girl barely acknowledged his handshake, instead turning her attention back to Luna. "Tom? How?" "Simple," she purred, looking him up and down as if he were a piece of furniture she found wanting. "So what do you do, Tom?" "Let me guess, something noble and terribly underpaid." The intent to humiliate was palpable. Luna's blood ran cold. This was it. The exact moment she had been dreading for a decade. She felt the old shame creeping back in, the urge to shrink and disappear. But then, she felt Thomas's hand gently touch the small of her back, a small grounding gesture that sent a jolt of courage through her. He was her fake date, yes, but in that moment, his support felt incredibly real. This was part of the shocking test, and Thomas was watching her reaction with keen interest. She took a breath and found her voice. "He's a teacher," Luna said, a quiet strength in her tone. "He helps shape the future, which I think is a little more important than shaping your social media feed." The comeback was subtle, but it hit its mark. The mean girl's smile tightened for a fraction of a second. It wasn't the fiery revenge Luna had sometimes fantasized about, but it was a start. It was a moment of overcoming the silence she had been trapped in for so long. The tension was broken by the arrival of drinks, but the first shot had been fired. The battle lines were drawn, just as they had been 10 years ago. The mean girl, clearly annoyed that Luna hadn't crumbled, shot them a final condescending glare. Before turning away, Luna knew this was far from over. This was just the opening act, and the main event of the evening was still to come. The emotional toll was already high, and the night was just getting started. Just as Luna was starting to catch her breath from the first encounter, disaster struck. Or at least it appeared to. A waiter, looking young and incredibly nervous, stumbled as he passed their small group. In what seemed like a moment of slow-motion horror, an entire tray of colorful, sticky cocktails went flying. landing directly on the front of Luna's carefully chosen dress. A collective gasp echoed around them. It was a social nightmare made manifest. The dress, her one expensive splurge for the evening, was ruined. A dark spreading stain now covered the delicate fabric. The mean girl let out a triumphant little smirk, clearly relishing this moment of public disaster for Luna. Everyone was staring, waiting for the inevitable reaction. Would she yell? Would she cry? Would she make a scene? For Thomas Watson, this was a pivotal moment in his shocking test. He watched her face intently, waiting to see her true character emerge from beneath the shock. The young waiter, who was, of course, an actor hired by Thomas, began to apologize profusely, his face pale with panic. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm so clumsy. They're going to fire me. I'm so sorry." He stammered, looking utterly distraught. This was the crucible. How does a person react not just to their own misfortune, but to the person who caused it? This was a test of grace under pressure, a core tenet of what Thomas was searching for. He wanted a partner, not a princess. And then Luna Young did something that surprised everyone, including, a little bit, herself. Instead of anger, her face softened with genuine concern for the flustered young man. Hey, it's okay. It's just a dress," she said softly, reaching out and touching his arm gently. "Don't worry about it, really. Accidents happen." She even grabbed some napkins from a nearby table and began helping him clean up the mess on the floor, completely ignoring her own ruined attire. This simple act of kindness was a thunderclap in the quiet judgment of the room. It was so unexpected, so contrary to the drama everyone was anticipating. It was a truly heart-aching moment of grace. The mean girl looked utterly baffled, her script for how this should play out now useless. Luna's response wasn't a performance, it was instinct. She saw someone who was scared and humiliated, and her first thought was to offer comfort, not condemnation. Thomas felt a powerful surge of admiration. This was it. This was the genuineness he had been looking for. She had passed this part of his shocking test with flying colors, revealing a kindness that wealth couldn't buy and adversity couldn't taint. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about her character. As Luna excused herself to try and fix her dress in the restroom, Thomas knew this fake date was becoming something much more. But he also knew a deeper secret was about to surface. While Luna was in the restroom dabbing at her dress, an old friend approached Thomas, mistaking him for a longtime companion of Luna's. "She's really something, isn't she?" the friend said, shaking his head in admiration. "Always has been. Most people would have lost it over a dress, but not Luna." The friend then leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, unaware that he was speaking to the secret CEO himself, a man very invested in this story. "You know," the friend continued, "that woman who was sneering at her earlier. She has no idea how much she owes Luna." Thomas's interest was piqued. This was an unexpected plot twist, the friend explained. That back in senior year, Luna had won a significant local scholarship, a full ride that would have changed the entire trajectory of her life. It was her ticket out, her reward for years of hard work. It was her moment of overcoming. But then, the scholarship money mysteriously vanished. The funds were redirected at the last minute, and the official story was a bureaucratic error. The scholarship was given to someone else's mean girl. Everyone had felt sorry for Luna, for the terrible stroke of bad luck. But the friend knew the truth. He had accidentally overheard the mean girl bragging to another friend about how her father had pulled some strings to get her the money instead. She had stolen Luna's future. Thomas was floored. This wasn't just petty high school bullying. This was a serious act of deceit that had profound consequences. Why didn't Luna say anything? Thomas asked, trying to keep his composure. The friend sighed. Because the girl's family was going through a quiet scandal at the time. If Luna had exposed her, it would have ruined their reputation completely. Luna chose to stay silent to protect her, even after being humiliated by her for years. This revelation recontextualized everything. Luna's quiet strength wasn't just about enduring mockery, it was about possessing a level of integrity that was almost superhuman. She had been robbed of a life-changing opportunity and chose grace over revenge. It was a secret act of kindness that painted a portrait of a truly remarkable woman. It was a heart-aching testament to her character, a secret she had carried alone for a decade. This was no longer just a test for Thomas, it was a revelation. When Luna returned from the restroom, looking a little damp but smiling bravely, Thomas looked at her with entirely new eyes. He wasn't just seeing a kind librarian or a charming fake date. He was seeing a woman of incredible substance and quiet heroism. He was seeing the woman he had been searching for his entire life. The emotional weight of this new knowledge was immense, and he realized he needed to connect with her on a level far beyond this charade. Later in the evening, Thomas found a quiet corner on a balcony with Luna, away from the noise of the high school reunion. He needed to see if the connection he felt could go deeper. He decided to deviate from his own shocking test and offer a piece of his own truth, a calculated risk. "You know," he began, his voice softer than before, "your kindness back there with the waiter, it was really something." He looked out at the city lights, a rare vulnerability in his eyes. "It's funny," he continued, "people assume that if you have money, you have everything. But it can be the most isolating thing in the world." Luna looked at him, surprised by this sudden turn. He wasn't just the charming substitute teacher anymore, he was showing her a crack in his own armor. "You're constantly second-guessing everyone's motives. Are they here for you or for what you can give them?" This was the genuine voice of Thomas Watson, the lonely secret CEO. He then shared a story, not of his wealth, but of a betrayal. He spoke of a past business partner, a man he had considered a brother, who had tried to stage a hostile takeover, driven by greed. He spoke of the sting of that deception, the feeling of being seen as a target rather than a person. It was his own story, of being humiliated, not in a hallway, but in a boardroom. It was a story that mirrored her own, a tale of trust broken by someone she should have been able to count on. Luna listened, captivated. In his story, she heard the echoes of her own pain. The scholarship, the mean girl's deceit, it was all the same theme of betrayal, just played on a different stage. For the first time all night, she felt truly seen, not as the underdog or the girl with the fake date, but as someone who understood a unique kind of hurt. It was a powerful, emotional moment of connection that transcended their fake circumstances. "I get it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I really do." And in that moment, the lie between them seemed to dissolve. They weren't a librarian and a substitute teacher anymore. They were two people who had been wounded by the world in similar ways, finding a moment of unexpected solace together. This was the real love story beginning to write itself, a heart-aching scene unfolding under the stars, far away from the prying eyes of the reunion. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, the shared vulnerability creating a bond stronger than any witty banter could. Destiny, it seemed, had a funny way of bringing people together, using their old scars as a roadmap to find each other. Thomas knew, with a certainty that shook him, that he couldn't let this woman go. But he also knew another part of his test was about to be triggered by the very person who had caused Luna's deepest wound. Just as they were about to head back inside, they were interrupted. It was the mean girl's husband, a man who, ironically, had been one of Luna's few genuine friends back in high school, before he fell in with the popular crowd. "Luna, it's so good to see you," he said, his smile warm and seemingly genuine. "I'm sorry about my wife earlier. She gets competitive." He seemed genuinely apologetic, a stark contrast to his arrogant spouse. He and Luna chatted for a moment, catching up on the years that had passed. It was a brief, innocent conversation, a small island of normalcy in a sea of emotional tension. As they were about to part ways, he gave her a quick, friendly hug. "Seriously, it's great seeing you look so happy," he said, before rejoining his wife inside. It was a harmless gesture, a hug between old friends, lasting no more than a few seconds, but it was not unseen. From across the room, hidden behind a large potted plant, the mean girl watched with a venomous glint in her eye. She had seen the intimacy on the balcony between Luna and her average date and was furious. She saw the hug not as a friendly reunion, but as an opportunity. With a deft movement, she raised her phone, zoomed in, and snapped a picture at the exact moment it looked the most compromising. A perfect, silent little weapon. Her plan was simple and cruel. She would use the photo to orchestrate a plot twist of her own. She would show it to Tom, the charming teacher, and plant a seed of doubt. She would paint Luna Young as a flirt, someone who was playing him while getting cozy with a married man. It was her next move in her relentless game to humiliate Luna, to shatter any happiness she might have found. It was a calculated act of sabotage, pure and simple. This was a different kind of revenge for her. It wasn't enough to have the money and the status she needed to ensure Luna had nothing. She couldn't stand seeing the former underdog with a confident smile and a handsome, devoted man by her side, even if he was a fake date. The photograph felt heavy in her hand, a digital key to unlocking more misery for the one person whose goodness she could never stand. She waited for the right moment, a predator stalking her prey. She needed to isolate Thomas, to catch him off guard and present her evidence with a look of feigned concern. The stage was set for another test, one that Thomas Watson hadn't planned for. This wouldn't be a test of Luna's kindness, but a test of his own trust, and the mean girl was about to play her trump card, hoping for a truly surprise ending to their night. A little while later, as Thomas was getting them fresh drinks, the mean girl made her move. She cornered him at the bar, her face a mask of faux sympathy. "Tom, can I talk to you for a second?" she began, her voice low and conspiratorial. "I really hate to be the one to do this, but I feel like you should know what kind of person you're really with." She then presented her phone, the carefully framed picture of Luna and her husband in a hug displayed prominently. "I saw them on the balcony," she lied smoothly. "It seemed a little more than friendly. He's a married man, you know." For a split second, Thomas Watson, the unflappable secret CEO, felt a very human pang of jealousy. It was an ugly, unwelcome feeling. He had just shared a moment of deep, emotional connection with Luna, and now this. The photo, stripped of its context, looked exactly as the bully intended it to. It was a direct challenge to the budding love story. This was an unscheduled part of his shocking test, a variable he hadn't accounted for. His first instinct, the gut reaction of a man who had been betrayed before, was suspicion. But then he thought of Luna. He thought of her kindness to the waiter, her quiet strength, the story of the scholarship. The woman he was getting to know didn't line up with the woman in this picture, the one being painted by this venomous gossip. He had to choose which reality to believe. So he didn't confront Luna with anger or accusations. That would have been too easy, too predictable. Instead, he found her by the dance floor, his expression calm but serious. He didn't show her the picture. He simply looked her in the eyes and asked a simple, direct question. "I need you to be honest with me, Luna," he said, his voice steady. "What is the nature of your relationship with the host's husband?" He was testing her honesty, the very foundation of trust. Luna Young was taken aback by the question, but not offended. She saw the seriousness in his eyes and knew this was important. There was no hesitation in her answer. "He was an old friend from back in school," she explained calmly. "One of the few people who was nice to me. We were just catching up. His wife seems to think we're still in high school, but he and I are just friends. That's all." Her answer was clear, direct, and unwavering. She looked him straight in the eye, and he saw nothing but sincerity. She passed this impromptu test without even knowing she was taking it. The jealousy vanished, replaced by a renewed wave of admiration. He had trusted his gut and trusted her, and she had proven him right. He knew then that the bully's attempt at revenge had backfired spectacularly, only serving to solidify his growing feelings. But he still had one final planned test to administer. As the high school reunion began to wind down, Thomas initiated the final phase of his planned shocking test. It was a test of generosity and partnership. Near the exit, as they were gathering their things to leave, he began to pat his pockets with a look of growing concern. "Oh no," he muttered, sounding genuinely distressed. "I think I've lost my wallet. It must have fallen out of my jacket somewhere." He made a show of looking around, checking the lost and found, and feigning frustration. "I'm so sorry, Luna," he said, turning to her with an apologetic look. "The coffee before, the tickets for this thing. I was supposed to cover our expenses for the fake date agreement. I don't know what to say." He watched her face closely. This was the moment of truth. He was, in her eyes, a man of modest means. Paying for the whole evening would be a significant financial hit for a librarian. Would she be annoyed? Would she feel like she was being taken advantage of? Would she suggest they go back to his place to get money, revealing a transactional mindset? Her reaction would tell him everything he needed to know about her view on partnership and money. For a secretly rich man like Thomas Watson, this was perhaps the most important test of all. He had seen her kindness and her honesty. Now he needed to see her generosity of spirit. Luna Young didn't even blink. There was no hesitation, no flicker of annoyance on her face. Her immediate response was one of concern for him, not for her own wallet. "Don't even worry about it for a second," she said immediately, already pulling out her own purse. "It happens to everyone. I've got this. Consider it my treat for you being such a wonderful shield tonight." She smiled, completely genuine. What's a little money between friends? She walked up to the payment counter for the tickets they'd reserved and paid for both of them without a second thought. She didn't make a big deal out of it, didn't sigh or comment on the cost. She simply handled it with grace and a sense of shared responsibility. To her, it wasn't about the money, it was about helping someone who was in a tough spot. She was treating him like a partner, an equal, even though she thought he was just a man she had hired for the night. Thomas was speechless. It was the most heart-aching and profound moment of the evening. This woman, who had so little compared to him, had a spirit of generosity that was boundless. She wasn't after money or status. She was after connection and kindness. She had passed every single one of his tests, planned and unplanned, with a grace that left him in awe. The underdog had revealed herself to be a queen. Now it was time for the final act of the night, where another queen was about to be crowned. Just as they were about to finally make their escape, the DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. "All right, everyone, settle down. It's the moment you've all been waiting for." A cheesy drumroll started to play. "It's time to announce the king and queen of our 10-year high school reunion." A wave of groans and a few excited squeals rippled through the crowd. It was a silly, antiquated tradition, but one that some people took very, very seriously. Namely, the mean girl. She dragged her husband to the front of the room, a practiced, expectant smile plastered on her face. She smoothed down her expensive dress and whispered something in his ear, and they both adopted a look of humble anticipation. But Thomas and Luna, standing near the back, could see the smug certainty in her eyes. It was clear that, for her, this wasn't a contest, it was a coronation. She had arranged for herself. Unbeknownst to most, she had spent the week rallying her old clique, stuffing the online ballot box with fake votes to ensure her victory. It was a desperate, pathetic attempt to cling to a high school crown that had meant everything to her a decade ago, and clearly still did. Winning was the ultimate validation for her, the final public confirmation of her superiority over people like Luna Young. It was the last piece of her planned public revenge. The DJ, a man who had clearly been persuaded to ensure the right outcome, milked the moment for all it was worth. The votes had been counted and verified. Our reunion king and queen, a couple that truly represents success and glamour, are. He paused dramatically, letting the tension build. The mean girl was practically vibrating with excitement, her eyes sweeping the room to make sure everyone was watching her inevitable triumph. For Luna, it was just one more reminder of the games people play. She didn't care about a plastic crown, but it was another example of how the deck was always stacked in favor of the wealthy and ruthless. She gave Thomas a small, weary smile, ready to just get out of there and leave this emotional battlefield behind. She had survived the night, and that was victory enough for her. The underdog didn't need a crown. But destiny had one more plot twist in store for the evening. Just as the DJ was about to announce the rigged winners, a loud crackle echoed through the room, followed by an ear-splitting screech of feedback. The sound system went completely dead. An awkward silence fell over the room. The coronation was abruptly put on hold, and suddenly, everyone was looking at the helpless DJ, who was frantically pushing buttons to no avail. An awkward, heavy silence filled the hall. The DJ was frantically toggling switches and checking cables, his face turning a bright shade of red. The big moment of the high school reunion had fizzled into a technical fiasco. The mean girl tapped her foot impatiently, her perfect smile turning into an ugly scowl. Of all the moments for things to go wrong, it had to be this one. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. After a minute of fumbling, the DJ threw his hands up in defeat. "Sorry, folks, it looks like the sound system is completely shot. I don't know what's wrong." Just as a collective groan began to rise from the crowd, Luna Young stepped forward. "I might be able to help," she said quietly. A few people turned to look at her, surprised. What did the quiet librarian know about complex audio equipment? What no one there knew was that Luna's love for stories wasn't confined to books. For the past 5 years, she had volunteered at a small community radio station, a passion project she rarely talked about. She had learned how to run the soundboard, troubleshoot feedback loops, and splice wires. It was her secret skill, a part of her life that was completely separate from the underdog persona they all remembered. She walked confidently toward the stage. Ignoring the skeptical looks, especially from the mean girl, Luna calmly began inspecting the back of the amplifier. Thomas Watson watched, a proud smile spreading across his face. This was a side of her he hadn't seen, a quiet competence that was incredibly attractive. This wasn't part of a shocking test, this was purely her, a spontaneous display of her hidden talents. It was a beautiful, unexpected surprise, ending to her personal journey of the night. With a few deft twists of some knobs and the replugging of a single crucial cable that had been kicked loose, the system hummed back to life. A clear, warm tone replaced the earlier silence. The DJ looked at her with wide-eyed astonishment and gratitude. The crowd, witnessing this small act of technical wizardry, broke into a spontaneous round of applause. It was the first time all night that the applause had been for something genuine. In that moment, Luna Young wasn't the girl to be pitied or the girl with the fake date. She was the hero of the hour. She had saved the moment, not with money or status, but with a real, useful skill. She simply gave a modest smile and started to walk back to Thomas. But the mean girl, utterly incensed that Luna had stolen her spotlight, was not about to let her have this victory. She decided it was time to drop her final bomb. Seeing Luna bathed in a moment of genuine admiration was more than the mean girl could stomach. Her rigged coronation had been upstaged by the one person she was determined to keep down. Consumed by a furious, petty rage, She snatched the no-working microphone from the DJ's hand. "Wait just a minute," she yelled, her voice sharp and shrill, cutting through the applause. "Before we all give a round of applause to our little hero, there's something you should all know." A hush fell over the crowd. The mean girl's face was twisted in a triumphant sneer. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger directly at Luna. "You all think she's so impressive, so put together? Well, you should know that her perfect, handsome date isn't even real," she announced, her voice dripping with venom. "That's right. She was so desperate and pathetic that she hired him. This is a fake date." The words echoed through the silent room. A collective gasp went through the crowd. All eyes swiveled from the bully to Luna, young, whose face had gone deathly pale. Her secret was out, exposed in the most brutal way imaginable. She felt the floor drop out from beneath her. It was her worst fear realized, a public shaming that was 1,000 times more painful than any high school mockery. She was utterly and completely humiliated. The room started to fill with whispers and shocked murmurs. Luna felt frozen, pinned by the stares of 100 people. She couldn't breathe. The small moment of pride she had felt just seconds before was shattered, replaced by a tidal wave of shame. She looked at Thomas, her eyes pleading, and then at the sea of faces, some filled with pity, others with cruel amusement. All she wanted to do was run, to disappear, and never see any of these people ever again. The emotional pain was overwhelming. This was the revenge the bully had been planning all along. Not just to win a silly crown, but to strip Luna of her dignity, to expose her as the lonely underdog she believed her to be. She stood there, basking in the destruction she had caused, a smug look of victory on her face. She had finally broken Luna young, or so she thought. She had no idea she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Luna was ready to flee, to give in to the humiliation and let the darkness swallow her whole. Her overcoming felt like a fraud, her destiny to be forever the girl who wasn't good enough. She took a step back, tears welling in her eyes, turning to escape the nightmare. But before she could move, a calm, steady hand took the microphone from the stunned bully. The entire dynamic of the room was about to change with a plot twist nobody saw coming. Thomas Watson stepped onto the stage, a look of calm, controlled power on his face. He hadn't planned for it to happen exactly like this, but he was prepared. He tapped the microphone, and the crisp sound silenced the whispers instantly. "She's right," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that no one in the room had heard before. "Luna did hire me tonight. But there's a little more to the story that you all deserve to hear." He turned his gaze from the crowd and landed it directly on the mean girl and her husband, who now looked slightly uneasy. "My name is not Tom, the substitute teacher. My name is Thomas Watson." A flicker of recognition crossed the husband's face. "I am the founder and CEO of Watson Enterprises." A wave of shock rippled through the room. The name was legendary in the business world. He was the secret CEO, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the country. The mean girl's jaw dropped. Her husband's face went white as a sheet. It was public knowledge in their circle that his company's survival depended on securing a massive, exclusive contract with Watson Enterprises. They had been trying to get a meeting with the elusive, secretly rich CEO for months, and here he was, standing in front of them, the man they had just belittled and whose date they had tried to humiliate. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. "You see," Thomas continued, his voice cool and deliberate, "I've been looking for a partner, and have grown tired of people who are only interested in my wealth. So I've been conducting a little experiment. A sort of shocking test." He let those words hang in the air, allowing the full implication to sink in. "I wanted to find someone with integrity, kindness, and grace. Someone who didn't care about money or status. So I put myself on that app, waiting for destiny." The entire room was silent, hanging on his every word. This plot twist was better than any movie. The hunter had become the prey. The bully's moment of triumph had morphed into a spectacular moment of self-destruction. She had not only failed to diminish Luna, but she had also single-handedly torpedoed her husband's career in the most public and embarrassing way possible. This was a revenge more complete than anything Luna could have ever imagined. Thomas's eyes softened as he turned to look at the stunned Luna Young. "And I found that person," he said, his voice now filled with genuine emotion. He was no longer addressing the crowd, but speaking only to her. The stage was set for his final revelation, the true purpose of this entire elaborate charade. He was about to explain how the underdog had not just passed his test, but had captured his heart. The surprise ending was finally here. This whole night, Thomas Watson announced to the captivated audience, was a shocking test, a test of character. He began to list the events of the evening. When a waiter spilled drinks on her expensive dress, she didn't get angry. She showed kindness. He paused, letting the memory sink in. When she was presented with a lie designed to make her jealous and suspicious, she chose to be honest and trusting. And when she thought I had lost my wallet, this woman, with her librarian's salary, offered to pay for everything without a moment's hesitation. He then turned his steely gaze back to the mean girl. But the most incredible test of her character happened 10 years ago. The crowd leaned in. Some of you might remember Luna winning the prestigious Founders Scholarship. He looked directly at the bully. And some of you might know that the money was stolen from her, redirected by a man pulling strings for his deceitful daughter. The mean girl looked like she had seen a ghost. Her decade-old secret was laid bare for all to see. Luna knew, Thomas declared. She knew, and she stayed silent to protect your family's reputation. She chose grace when you chose greed. She chose integrity while you built a life on a lie. The humiliation was absolute. The mean girl and her husband stood there, exposed and utterly shamed. The perfect life they had projected was revealed to be a hollow facade. They were the ones who were truly humiliated, their status turning to ash in a matter of seconds. Thomas walked over to Luna Young, who was staring at him, tears of shock and vindication streaming down her face. He gently took her hand. "I didn't come here looking for a fake date," he said, his voice now soft and filled with a heart-aching sincerity. "I came here looking for a reason to believe in people again. And you, Luna, you are that reason." This was more than just a plot. It was a declaration. "This love story might have started on a lie," he confessed, "but my feelings for you are the realest thing I have ever felt. I'm not offering you my money, Luna. I'm offering you my heart. I'm offering you a partnership. In every sense of the word." It was the ultimate moment of overcoming. The girl who had come here fearing judgment was now being offered a kingdom built on respect and genuine love. Destiny had delivered its final, perfect verdict. The crowd erupted in thunderous, genuine applause. The underdog had not only won, but she had also received the ultimate prize, not revenge, but redemption and true love. The bullies shuffled away, their social reign over for good. Luna looked at Thomas, her heart so full it felt like it could burst. This was the surprise ending she never dared to dream of, a future that was brighter than she could have ever imagined. Her high school story was finally, beautifully complete. And there you have it. What an unbelievable journey, right? It started with the dread of a high school reunion and ended with a love story for the ages. We walked through this story together, feeling the sting of Luna being humiliated, the tension of the shocking test, and that incredible cathartic surprise ending. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes our greatest moments of overcoming are born from our most vulnerable situations, and that destiny truly has a plan for the underdog. The ultimate revenge wasn't loud and flashy, it was quiet, elegant, and final. It was seeing kindness win, seeing integrity rewarded, and seeing the connection so heartaching that it felt real from the very first moment. The plot twist of The Secret. CEO wasn't just about money, it was about revealing that true worth has nothing to do with a bank account. It was a beautiful testament to character. Now I want to hear from you. What was the moment in this emotional story that impacted you the most? Was it Luna's quiet grace when she helped the waiter? Was it the satisfying moment Thomas revealed his true identity? Let me know in the comments below. And tell me, did you see that ending coming, or were you hoping for a different outcome? I read all the comments and I'd love to know what you think. If this story touched your heart, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps our community grow more than you know. And if you want more stories that make you feel, that inspire, and that keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss what we have coming up next. Your support means the world to us. Don't let the journey end here. We have a whole library of videos waiting for you, filled with tales of love, revenge, and unexpected destinies. Go check them out after this. You won't be disappointed. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that true love and vindication can be just around the corner. We'll see you in the next story.